Today we'll be going over the last week of December's auctions, ending anywhere between Friday the 27th and Sunday the 29th. I hope everybody had a very Merry Christmas, and we're going to go ahead and get started right away with this Super Redhead Spotnose Probable Orange Stream Redstripe Clown. That's a lot of stuff going on here. Being a male and a visual clown at that, this is a pretty good, powerful breeder boy. Anytime you can guarantee Redstripe, especially since it's a little more subtle by itself, would be great, because that is exactly what you'd be doing with a super. Any super always passes itself on. You'll never get normals. You can rest assured that every single baby will be a redhead morph at minimum, no matter what you breed it to. On top of that, of course, you're also playing around with the Spotnose and the Clown, and if it does prove out as Orange Stream, which I think is a pretty good chance. I wish there was another picture here, but just given what I am kind of seeing here, I'd have to say, yeah. As you can see, there is a good amount of interest in this at a pretty decent price there. You know, $800 with still a day to go as of recording this, which means that it's going the day that you are watching this. And it's really nice to get, obviously, the visuals in the boys, because you always know that you're going to be passing on that clown gene to whatever you breed it to. Everything will be at minimum het clown. If you breed it to a visual clown, of course, it'll all be clown. And if you breed it to a het, then 50% of the time you're going to be getting clowns. But in a way, it kind of works very similar with super forms. They still kind of behave the same way as a recessive, only you got something to show for it, really. So it's nice to have that in a super in a boy. So that's why I can see this going for a decent amount. And I think if you're in the market for something, you know, like this, and having some very high-end genes here that are good in the clown project, I think that this would definitely be something that you consider for a powerhouse boy to get you started. You could breed it to quite a bit of things and try to get into many different projects, whether they're on the dark side or the light side, or the more often than not, just vibrant side for clown. Next up would be this proven boy who is a gravel and 100% het Ultramel. Now, why this is kind of neat, even though it is not a visual, is that being a proven breeder male, he'd be immediately ready to go breeding into some highway projects. Specifically, obviously, you kind of want the Ultramel highway. So you'd want to put this to a visual Yellowbelly Ultramel. That would be the best way to go about it on a budget, because he probably won't go for a whole bunch, because I think that it will be gotten for a pretty affordable price. If you're wondering what a highway Ultramel looks like, they're very, very vibrant and kind of throwing off a lot of those banana type vibes to it. Very beautiful, lots of lavenders in the top there, and of course that thin stripe that kind of looks like a highway going down it. So pretty darn nice, if I gotta say so myself. Highways are always very sought after. I like to say that there's certain projects that no matter what you do are always sought after for either pet level or for breeder level. That'd be things like highways or even blue-eyed Lucy's, even though that project pretty much dies once you create the blue-eyed Lucy. They always sell. And in highways, even more so than blue-eyed Lucy's, there's more to go. You can, of course, create Ultramels. You can create clowns. There's lots of different things you can do. Same thing with freeways, obviously, except for the fact that the gravel is replaced with the asphalt. But there's a lot of different projects you can work in that Yellowbelly complex. And having a boy like this would be a good way to do it on a budget, but yet quickly, since he's already to wait and a proven breeder at that. Moving right along to this Leopard Fire Pastel Double Het Clown Pied. If you're gonna work with hets, it's nice to have it in the females, I say, because as I said previously, the males being visuals, you know, you're gonna breed that to more than one female. So if you're gonna cheap out, it's better to have a visual male than a visual female. So if you wanted to hit clown pieds with a little bit more flair, this is a nice one to do, because I think that you could possibly get this one for a steal. There's a moderate amount of interest, and you know, you get a male Spotnose, a clown, maybe with some orange stream in there, something really nice like that. And these days, clown pieds are coming down more affordable, especially for the boys. So maybe you could pick up a Spotnose visual clown pied, or you maybe just get the het in one of them. You get the clown Spotnose with an extra genetic or so in there, and het pied. You take a little bit of a gamble there going het to het, because you can test for these with RGI and send them in and determine whether the offspring, when they don't hit a visual version, would be het or not. But I think that'd be a really nice way to work it. People often say the clown pieds are kind of coming down in price and whatnot, and that's fine for just the visual clown pied, but there's still a lot of awesome examples. Just because a visual clown pied, the double recessive, is a little easier, you know, it's a lot easier to make these. Nowadays, people can pick up a male and a female for about the price that they were picking up just one male a while back. So that's why they're easier to get and easier to create. Just kind of makes sense. The laws of supply supply and demand, so make them better, and they would look really, really, really nice. This one really caught my attention. This Mojave Leopard Clown is absolutely killer. I really wish there were more pictures of it here, but I absolutely love how the head just kind of washes out with this nice kind of sandblasted brown, kind of just moving down the entire snake, just keeping that same coloring, maybe darkening a little bit as it goes down, but really, really nice. But then the contrast of the sides is very, very cool. They're an orangish type side with a lot of busy pattern going on here. Again, like I said, I wish that I could see another picture of this, you know, with it stretched out, seeing more of it. But what I see, I really, really like. The leopard and the Mojave working together with the clown just brings in that kind of faded type look, but the enriching colors that the leopard brings in, and as well as being an incredible example of a leopard at that, mind you, it just jumbles up that entire pattern, and it really creates a best of both worlds aspect here. The contrast is absolutely outstanding, and often sometimes people are just looking for dark and light when they're contrasting, and that definitely kind of makes sense. Maybe they're looking for two contrasting colors, but you're also getting faded because the back almost looks like you're looking like a hypo or something like that, which is coming from the Mojave. But then the pattern, that's nice and bold. It doesn't look like that. It's almost like it decided to be more faded just on the dorsal stripe and on the head, and in between, you know, and that particular color. But at the same time, it almost has a tinge of that darkness fighting it. It's very, very nice. It doesn't have a ton of interest right now, so I can see this one going for a good deal again. Now, one thing to consider when working with Mojave, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is, like we mentioned earlier, a blue-eyed leucistic gene. So if you want to work this with certain other genetics, just make sure you're not putting it up against another blue-eyed leucistic like lesser or bamboo or anything like that, because if you do, you're going to end up with an all-white snake. And while that is an absolute wonderful joy to create when you're creating visual clowns with a lot of different combos, it doesn't make much sense to hide all that underneath the blank white slate of snow that is the all-white blue-eyed Lucy. So just a small thing to consider, but this is an absolutely beautiful animal, and this is the sort of stuff you can work when you properly throw contrasting together. Sometimes just a simple combo is best. Mojave Leopard Clown, Mojave GHI Clown, they work very well together, even though they theoretically shouldn't. Moving right along to this NANNY Enchi special. Another word for NANNY, as you can see here, is Carnage, and that's kind of, I guess, what's taking over. A lot of people want to call it the Carnage now, and you know, that probably makes a lot of sense in a world of reptiles and reptile enthusiasts. Having one called Carnage is really cool, right? Versus NANNY. You know, and that's no disrespect on the original name of the gene. Either way, they are awesome genes. Enchi is something where obviously most people are very familiar with. It brings in a little bit of oranginess here, which you're kind of seeing, and then just kind of thins that pattern out, which again, you are seeing here, but then the other genetics come in and change things. Special is what's bringing that tinge to it, this little bit of a lightening and enhancing. It really brings in a more rich color. Special is a really good gene. If you can get it, I definitely recommend it. And then Carnage just destroys that pattern in the way that it does. It's very nice, beautiful, rich color. I love the undertones of this animal and how all of these genetics kind of come together and work its magic on this. Now, a lot of people will see this and might say, well, it doesn't have a recessive. And in general, yes, I agree. I think that working recessives is just kind of the name of the game going forward for most things anyways. Whether that is for better or worse, I'll leave that up to you. It's just kind of an undeniable truth that working recessives is just kind of a thing. However, females can always find a place, and being it's not a male, you are capable of breeding a recessive male into this if you saw fit to do so, and creating hets. And immediately you could get a visual version of this with some hets, and then you can raise those up and then hit visual recessive combos with this. I think this could go good with quite a bit, quite frankly. Obviously, you know, everybody always thinks clown first. You might think pied next, and I still do think that's awesome. Special pieds are kind of unique sometimes. They do tend to be more high white though. With that said, sometimes they create little head caps and very unique, cool things. So while I'm not sure about having something with an incredible amount of pattern in it would be ideal to create that, they're still very cool to make, and it'd be interesting to see something like that. A few other really cool ones would be something that we talked about earlier, like Ultramel, or my favorite, Monarch. Those would be very cool with this because it's already kind of got a really rich, nice coloring. So I'd be very interested to see what that would look like, because I would immediately think that this might make it a little bit more light just because of the special and the Enchi and whatnot. But you know, especially like Monarch, the way I know it is works very well with both darks and lights. So I'd be very, very interested to see it with something like that. Just a lot of different ways my mind kind of tends to go when I'm looking at something like this. It's just, where do I want it to go next? You know, what are my plans for it in the future? Moving to our first proven breeder girl would be this Leopard Orange Dream Enchi Het Clown. From Brock Wagner Reptiles. She's already the size, proven breeder at that. You'd obviously want to find out when she last laid. Sometimes they just laid and they're just being made available as breeders get their new stuff up to size. You know, they breed one last clutch and they kind of move on from them. We did that ourselves with quite a few of our breeders, and we still have 1 or 2 left to go. But this is not an uncommon practice at all, and it definitely leaves an opportunity open for somebody to get a little bit ahead of the game and into an area that they might not have normally seen themselves at. This girl here has some pretty stunning colors for being a full-grown adult. Again, she's proven breeder. She's not going to really get any bigger other than putting on size to lay again, and she's still very vibrant with very nice creamy oranges. You know, you hit the clown version of something like this and it's going to be even more incredible. This is definitely something I'd like to see, and again, there's so many different directions. You could go the Batman route with just simply getting a Spotnose clown to put to it. You could go even more crazy with a blackhead clown, or you could kind of stick it with the lighter side route and get a Yellowbelly into this, along with maybe even fire to lighten it up even more. There's just so many different avenues that you could go, but again, as I've been saying already, is that I would recommend putting a visual clown male to it. That way you always guarantee your hits if you don't hit, and you obviously up your odds from about 1 out of every 4 to half of them always hitting the visual clown. But a really good opportunity, again, from Brock Wagner Reptiles, a very trustable breeder with a lot of quality animals. Moving into our Hognoses for the day, starting with this unique little boy right here. This is not one that probably should be bred. In fact, it says pet only right here, as it should. It has a kink and it's short-bodied, and I thought that was kind of unique. You can definitely see here it almost looks like a worm, not just in terms of being a young animal, but it's very short. You can tell that there's definitely a bit of a deformity there, plus obviously the kink, but just something kind of unique. So I really just wanted to show this off. Sometimes animals that shouldn't be bred, at least, can still kind of live a nice life as a pet. You know, maybe even a cool, unique pet, an educational pet at that. Maybe even better when it's that. You show someone like, hey, look at this. You know, it's really cool. It's really special. You know, kind of teach them beyond what we normally do. So just a kind of cool animal, not really anything for breeding projects, just kind of wanted to show it off. Now, what would be cool for breeding projects would be the next few that we're going to talk about, including this 1 to 2 trio of Anaconda Het Swiss Chocolate. It's a male and 2 females. The male is 100% Het Swiss and unrelated, and then the 2 females look like they are both 66% Het Swiss Chocolate. As I clicked on this and have been preparing for this video, I've had this up for a little while and I've watched this action happen from 80 bucks all the way to plus 1,000 at this point. So you can see this is not going to be a cheaper one. It's got a lot of interest and it's got a considerable amount of time left. I just thought I would be interested because I didn't know about the Swiss chocolate. I looked into it here as soon as I saw it because I was like, oh, I had no idea. I'm not as well versed with my Hognoses. I'm just getting started and whatnot and breeding them. But I thought it'd be interesting to show you what some of those would look like. A very dark animal, very dark head at that. Lots of different combos there. I saw some here as well, combined with other things, including ones that just look very dark, like this one right here, this Swiss chocolate Xanthic. Now, I have heard some people say maybe it might be another line of Sable, which is also a darker morph. And I can't say one way or the other, again, as I don't know enough. But the Sables I have seen don't quite look this dark. You can kind of see here, definitely dark, but not like what we were looking at earlier. Not this or this. This has more of a Woma python look, where it has a very, very, very dark head. I would think they would be different just from an outside standpoint looking in. Now, I have seen some Sables that look darker than others. There's no doubt. They still don't have have that same look that I'm seeing right here with a very, very dark head as well. It just seems to be a little more darker overall. So I definitely think it's interesting. And if you're big into hognoses and you want a good chance to get into something new, and a good chance that you get one of these two females, if not both of them, prove out, is pretty darn high. And the male obviously is 100%. So no matter what, you know, whatever you breed to that, you have a chance of getting your hets and going from there. Still really cool. The animals I saw that were created with this just look incredibly cool and dark. Again, like it said, it just kind of gives me that Woma Python type feel with this very dark head. Next up would be this male ready to breed albino, and you don't really see too many ready to breed for hognoses that often. That's why I had to call it out. I've seen quite a few from geckos, etc. though, so they're obviously kind of moving up and probably moving out some of their older breeders as they increase diversity in their gene pool. So a good opportunity to jump in and start breeding hognoses, which just are really kind of starting, in my opinion. I guess I shouldn't say starting, but I've definitely noticed an uptick in these animals, and they most certainly deserve it. The only thing that hampers them is that you do need to make sure that your local laws allow them. There are certain states that just don't allow them without permit or in general, so definitely just keep an eye on that. That's the only thing really hampering their popularity, and that's not because of any major reason other than the fact that the Western hognoses are native to the United States, and in an effort to prevent them from being wild collected as much, that is why you often get these laws in place. At least that's the way it should work. It doesn't always shake out that way, but that's a topic for another time. And our final hognose would be this extreme red purple line Sunburst Anaconda. And wow, I love Sunburst, but this one really, really pops. Just a really nice creamy color. I've said this many times, I don't really care for the Superconda for the most part in the hognoses because it wipes that pattern other than the head away, which is interesting. But when it's done right, it does it very, very right. And this is a really vibrant animal. There is a reserve price though, so I always say bid up to where you're comfortable. So if you want to bid maybe, I don't know, $1,200, don't just bid it to $1,200 because you could find out that maybe it ended at $1,000. You spent $200 possibly unnecessarily. With that said, Dave, I think it would go beyond that, but it might not. You never know. Either way, kind of bid it up in increments. So if you're very interested in this animal, maybe bid $950 and then $975. Just sit there and wait for that reserve price to drop off. And if it doesn't, well, no harm, no foul. If it gets to the amount you do not feel comfortable in going any further, just stop. And since the reserve price wasn't met, you don't owe anybody anything. Once the auction ends, if it isn't beat by someone else, then that auction will be void. Still a really beautiful animal and a very nice breeder if that's the kind of direction you'd want to go, because again, you'd be always working with this albino sable het. You could hit visuals if you're breeding to other het girls, or to a visual, of course, but you'd also be passing one copy of Conda on, and that I really do like. The pattern for those are very, very nice. It just kind of creates the kind of patterning of an anaconda is where it gets its name from. The next few here are always after my heart because they are Pastel Yellowbelly 66% Monarchs. This one here is also possibly a low expression. I'm sure that's what that meant. This one also could be a low expression hurricane, and you get those kind of swirls in there and whatnot when that happens. It kind of makes the pattern go sideways and swirl around, which is where it gets its nickname from. But if this girl proves out as Monarch, that is going to be something else. That is for sure. And yes, you are working with 66% het, but I think that's what's going to keep this cost kind of lower. And you don't just have one chance here, you have a few. There's another one here that is a hurricane Pastel Yellowbelly, but 66% het Monarch. And then you've got a male as well, a Hurricane Yellowbelly, 66% het Monarch. And Hurricane's a really, really nice gene. And Monarch, obviously, you know, is one of my favorites. It's deep, it's bold, it's the closest to purple I think we can get right now. If you want to see what a Hurricane Monarch looks like, well, look no further. Here you are, and you can kind of see a really good example of this. Just the swirls, the beautifulness, this just deep mahogany on its back, as well as just absolutely crazy pattern, absolutely insane, absolutely beautiful. I really, really love this. Now imagine this also with Yellowbelly, and you might think, well, Pastel's not good, but Pastel's really nice in the right things, and in Monarch, it's really nice. Now, I do tend to like the darker side of Monarch better, but the light side of Monarch works incredibly well. I like to say it has a microdose of Desert Ghost in there because it cleans things up and it enhances them too. So the bright Monarchs are also Very, very nice and rich. These right here could be a great deal. And heck, maybe you get a few of these and you save on that shipping right there. I know I'm kind of interested, that's for sure, because seeing something like this is well worth it. If the price is right on something like this and you can get it for a good amount, you know, 66%, it's better than 50% shot. So I think this could definitely change someone's game. If one of these ends up proving out, that is a big deal. Back into Ultramel from Chimera would be this Ultramel Clown girl. About 2 days from recording this left on her. There's not a whole bunch to say other than the fact that, well, you could create clown Ultramels. You know, get yourself a clown head Ultramel male if you want to save a little bit, maybe add some extra genetics in there like Blackhead or something cool like that, and go to town, create Ultramel clowns. And again, I think that this one, it'll definitely increase in price, but you're gonna get a deal on pretty much anything on these auctions. So if this is the route you wanted to go and you've been looking for one, you can't get much better than the quality that Chimera offers. So again, not a whole lot of time spent on this because it doesn't really need it. You know what you're working with here, and you know what you're trying to hit. You're trying to hit that visual Ultramel clown, which is really beautiful. Our last two here will be from the same breeder, starting off with this Orange Dream Wookie Clown male right here. Wookie's a really cool gene. It's unique in that it brings in these just very nice browns, and it works well with both dark and light. As you can kind of see here, the Orange Dream is definitely, I would say, a little bit more of a bright type gene. Maybe not light, but it's bright, and it brings in these nice, beautiful, crisp oranges. Wookie in general, I think, would lean towards the dark side, but it works well with it. It doesn't push it away. Some genetics that are dark look very nice and beautiful, but when you're pairing them, they're just so powerful, and they're just like, no, I'm in control. But there's certain ones like Wookie and Blackhead that say, nah, let's work together, and it creates something that's nice and crisp like this. You know, has this nice brown, dark color to it, but still creates this beautiful blushing, this crisp kind of burnt orange on it. Wookie and Clown, a lot of people, when they think of Wookie and Clown, they immediately want to go and create the Kraken. But that would be really cool to see something that with Orange Dream, and perhaps it's probably been done, but I don't see enough Kraken. A lot of people always work the Pompeys. The Pompeys is what everybody is talking about, I think, with Clown and whatnot. Here's a female Wookie here that gets rid of the Orange Dream, but then brings in Yellowbelly and adds Redstripe on top of that. And you can kind of see the difference here. The Yellowbelly will definitely still brighten it up, and now you've got more of a rusty red. The dorsal itself has pattern within it, which is really nice, but you still get this really beautiful blushing shooting up from the animal, probably being influenced by that Yellowbelly. This kind of really highlights a couple of genes that are normally subtle, like Redstripe and Yellowbelly are incredibly subtle, but when you start to see them in combos, you start to see the heavy influence these genes have. The little engine that could, if you will. I'm kind of dating myself with that reference, but it kind of just goes to prove that as something is put into certain combos, that it makes a big difference. Redstripe, Lace, Yellowbelly, Russo, all these aforementioned genes, Redhead, they just kill it when they're in combos. They just absolutely make a big difference. It's something I try to tell people to avoid mistakes like what I have made in the past, is to not avoid these genes, especially nowadays with prices kind of in a definitely favorable for the buyer. I once skipped out on an animal that I still have this day, and it's a beautiful, powerful animal, but I skipped out on Yellowbelly being in it because I thought that the price difference didn't warrant it. And man, that was probably one of the silliest decisions I've ever made. So don't see this and say, well, I can get this animal for cheaper if I just don't get Yellowbelly, or if I don't get Redstripe. You will regret it down the line, I feel. Now, obviously, that's not to say that maybe your financial situation doesn't allow for certain things, and that's a completely different situation. But don't go beyond your own means, ever. That said, if you have the means to do it, this is a more powerful animal than if it had not had Yellowbelly or Redstripe for that matter, and it will make a big difference down the line. When you start to make these combos, you'll certainly see it, and you'll certainly wish that maybe you'd made a different decision later on down the road. A very beautiful one, and a girl at that for this one. Again, from the same breeder, so maybe you combine the shipping, save on that. That's always nice too. So that'll do it for this week. A lot of cool animals. Even though there's not a whole bunch, we are just exiting Christmas. You know, as this gets closer to tax time and whatnot, I can suspect that things will get a little bit more spicy again. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, as always, if you got something from this auction or from a prior auction, please let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in knowing and learning a little bit more about some of the genetics we talked about today, you can actually see that in our videos right here and here.